Right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Cosby,
Here.
Mrs. Ebel. Here. Mr. Zylstra. Mr. Bonema. Mr. Moss,
Here.
Mrs. Curran. Here. Mrs. Rhodey. Here. Mr. Belknap,
Here.
Mr. Bergman. Mrs. Miedema.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right. Thank you. Okay, moving past correspondence, we're going to go to public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? Okay, anyone who would like to address the board, or we will move into the next part of our meeting. All right, thank you. Can I please get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and support to approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carried. Okay, we have a consent resolution today. Could I please get a motion to accept the consent resolution?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of December 5, the consent motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Looks like no comment, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carried as well. Okay, so we're up to public interviews. And today, the board will be publicly interviewing 5 candidates for District 6 County Commissioner. 8A on our agenda, there's a suggested motion, and I'm just going to go to Vice Chair Rhodey just to read through this, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, our suggested motion is to approve the interview procedure to be used while interviewing 5 applicants for County Commissioner in District 6 is defined by the board chairperson as follows. Interview procedure: at the request of the board chairperson, the applicant will be seated at the boardroom table. The board chairperson will introduce the applicant by name. Each commissioner will introduce themselves by name and district. The board chairperson will ask a prepared set of 10 questions to the applicant, and the board chairperson will thank and excuse the applicant. Want me to keep going?
That looks good.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Oh, wait, is there discussion on this?
Oh, yes, if there's discussion, yes, go ahead.
I have a question. If there's time, can we have an opportunity to ask the applicant questions if there's time
So there's,
within the whatever time frame you have set up?
my recommendation would be no, because we're trying to have a very consistent and similar set of questions for every applicant so that we're comparing apples to apples. And so that'd be my recommendation, that we keep it consistent and following this pattern. And then I'd also recommend that the board members reach out to every applicant and talk to them, and any additional questions, sit down, have coffee, have a phone call, that kind of thing, and ask additional questions that way.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Thank you.
I don't know if we're going to have much extra time. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's why I said if.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, seeing as we still have 6, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carried. Okay, so moving into the interview schedule, let's see. I'm going to look for a motion to begin interviewing the selected candidates for District 6 County Commissioner.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carried. And so what we're going to do is welcome in the first applicant. That would be Joel Buck. All the applicants are in order, alphabetical order by last name. And so Joel will be first. And so at this time, I believe Stephanie was going to go welcome them in. So we are going to run a timer as well so that we kind of can see how time is going. And yeah, thank you for the members of the public who are here to observe.
Oh, thank you.
That's wonderful. Oh, wonderful. Welcome, Mr. Buck.
Morning.
All right. So we have Joel Buck here with us in District 6, and what we're going to do to start out is just go around. We'll start down here with Roger. Just introduce yourself by name and district, and then we'll get started with some questions.
Good morning, Joel. My name is Roger Belknap. I represent District 9, which is Grand Haven Township, Spring Lake Township Precinct 5, and Robinson Township.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sylvia Rhodey and I represent Allendale Township, which is District 8.
Joe Moss, I'm District 5, which is Blendon, Jamestown, City of Hudsonville, and a small part of Zealand.
Good morning, Joel. Rebecca Curran, District 7, Georgetown Township, and I've got a little slice of Hudsonville. Welcome.
Morning, Joel. I'm District 11, and it's a large part of the northeastern part of the county, which is Chester, Crockery, the city of Coopersville, Polkton, Talmadge Charter Township, which is where I reside, and Wright Township. So welcome.
Good morning, Joel. My name is Gretchen Cosby and I represent District 1, which is Olive Park Township with the exception of Park 4. Lucy has that. And then Olive and Port Sheldon Townships. Thank you for your application.
Go ahead and introduce yourself by name and district. Yeah. Oh, you're good.
Sorry. Lucy Ebel. And I'm Commissioner for District 2, which is Holland Township. And also Park Township, Precinct 4. Thank you.
All right. So we have 10 questions. The applicants have seen 5 of them ahead of time, maybe 5 of the harder ones. But so I'm just going to ask a question and love to hear your responses. So number 1 is just please tell us about yourself, why you decided to apply to be considered for this appointment to serve as County Commissioner in District 6.
I've always been fairly interested in, the way our government works, in high school, taking AP government, US history classes, learning about the Constitution, what sets America apart from every other country, and being, how great it is and could be again. And I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17. I turned 18 in boot camp. Right away learned a lot about big government spending and waste while serving. Also learned how busy things can get, and moving on, getting married, having a family, just kind of keeping my head down and not paying attention, thinking that the little people can't make a difference. And like a lot of people in 2020, kind of woke up to what was going on. Actually started by trying to prove my mother-in-law wrong on Facebook, seeing some of her posts and thinking this is ridiculous. So I started investigating and doing some research, and a few weeks later realized, she's right. And So getting more involved in trying to figure out what I can do. As an outsider, I'd always hear about these rallies after they always happened. You know, school board meetings, didn't go to those, and then found the convention of states, thought this is something maybe I could get involved with. And so I volunteered for that. Did the float in the parade for convention of states, worked with some tables at gun shows and stuff, and started to meet some people. And I was asked to run as a precinct delegate, and I had no idea what that was. And I looked into it, joined, and first time going to a county meeting, I didn't know anybody. They didn't know me. I didn't trust them. They didn't trust me. And so I kind of started getting viewpoints from both sides, and took a lot of discernment and research. And I realized, you know, who the good people were and who the people that were, you know, looking out for themselves, and you know, started getting more involved. And then 3 weeks ago, somebody asked me, you know, would you ever consider doing something like at a higher level than precinct delegate? You know, they're just kind of curious. And I was like, no way. See how hard the commissioners have to work and all the stuff they go through with the media. And I'd never want to get involved and have to do that. You know, just be involved in other ways. And then Mr. Terpstra resigned, and I wasn't seeing people volunteering that I knew. And it's 10:30 at night, and I said to my wife, I think I'm going to do this, and I don't want to. And, you know, prayed over it, and here I am.
All right. Thank you. Number 2 is what qualifications or skill sets, including work or life experience, will you bring with you if you were selected to serve?
As far as government goes, I am a newbie. I don't know a lot of the processes, but everything I've done, every job I've ever had, it's always given 110%. I've worked small businesses and you know, family-owned businesses, and I always treated it like it was I was part of the family. And you know, I'd expect to do the same in this position. I was meritoriously promoted twice while I was in the Marine Corps. The colonel of our unit picked me to be his personal chef while we were deployed. So I've got a lot of skills, you know, just taking the reins and, you know, making my own, you know, self-governance, I guess you'd call it. Well, you know, starting out in my career after the Marines, I worked in a machine shop and became my own boss when they had me start doing assembly. And then once the company started growing, they had me manage the workers out in the shop. And then it moved into office work, making decisions on which direction the company would go. And I worked there for nearly 20 years. So very dedicated to, you know, being there. And when parted ways 6 years ago, started working at my current employer, and pretty rapidly moved into a management position there from that's again another small business, and I feel honored that they've placed enough trust in me to assist them in making those decisions.
All right, excellent. There are many decisions and votes that take place each week as a county commissioner. How will you go about making decisions if selected, and kind of tell us about your internal compass?
Any decision I would make, number one, I'd pray on it. God is my internal compass, going to show me where true north is. The biggest thing I see with government is trying to keep it small. And any decision that is made, I would like to just look at it, especially like a grant, for example. Where's this money coming from? That's the taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer. I don't want any more of my money taken to be wasted. So the risk versus reward would have to be looked at for every decision, taking into account the personal freedoms and liberties of the individual that may be impacted by any decision that was made. There's so much talk of defending democracy in our country right now. And the word democracy isn't in the Constitution. It's not in the Pledge of Allegiance. It's a republic. And people have failed to remember that the right of the individual doesn't go away when just because the mob votes that's what they want. And I really believe every decision that needs to be made has to be looked at through that viewpoint. That just because it's something that the majority of the people want, somebody is going to be affected, and it needs to be considered.
All right, thank you. Number 4, if given the opportunity to decide how to use a $1 million grant, how would you spend it and why?
First off, I'd look at where that money came from, who's involved, what strings are attached, depending on what the grant is actually for, looking at cui bono, who benefits, and is that money actually going to be spent correctly? A lot of this money, comes from places where they have an ulterior motive, and I would have no problem turning that money down and telling the people why.
Thank you. Okay, number 5, how much time do you expect to be able to give this role?
I do work full-time. I travel a lot. This has been a pretty tough decision to make, to how much time, I can devote. And I'm looking at expecting about 3 to 4 hours a day after work, and then probably most of the Saturday.
Okay, could you describe a time when you had to consider differing opinions and make a decision?
One of the biggest decisions recently that with differing opinions would be deciding to leave the church that I attended for 20 years. My kids were involved. My wife was involved with youth group, leading worship there. We had a lot of friends there, and the church started making some decisions that rubbed me the wrong way, with like social decisions and cultural decisions, and starting to align themselves with the world and not the Bible. So I took a lot of discussions with my wife. She wanted to stay, kids wanted to stay, and had to weigh out the options and discuss things, and ultimately I had to make the decision that my wife wasn't thrilled with, and decided to start looking, and we did find another church, and now the whole family is happy, but it was a tough decision to make.
Okay, number 7, kind of an opinion question. What are the best things about the United States?
Best things about the United States is the opportunity that it affords for every individual to succeed, to be free to make their decisions, whether that's with religion, their careers. We're not like a country like China where you're pretty much told what you're going to do, what job you're going to have. And we have the Bill of Rights that affords those things to us. And, that's really what we need to focus on to keep those liberties, because once the first and second go, the rest are going to just fall rather quickly. And it's concerning to see that those changes are happening, but that's what makes America great. To have those opportunities to start from nothing. You look at for instance, Tim Scott, and his family history, not having a dad in the family, and now was running for president. And despite what popular opinion may say, the American dream is not dead.
Thank you. Okay, number 8, similar question. What are the best things about Ottawa County?
Ottawa County right now, I say the best thing is these resolutions that the commissioners have put forth in the last year. The direction that's moving, getting away from DEI, making constitutional county. That's things that you hear on the news, like down south in Mississippi. It's like, wow, that'd be great, and it's happening here.
Okay, where would you live if you could not live in Ottawa County?
Probably someplace in Florida.
Do you want to expand on that?
If I couldn't live in Ottawa County, it would definitely be another county that I could find that's on the path that the county currently is in.
Mhm.
I look at a lot of the freedoms that are given back to the people in Florida by their governor, the local governments there. And that's, I think, is the most important thing to choose or to look at when choosing a place to live.
All right, thank you. One more. What else would you like to share that you have not been asked? Kind of an open-ended opportunity.
Basically that I don't want this job. I'm not aspiring to move on up. It's something that I took a lot of prayer to make this step. And I'm going to not align myself with anybody else on the board if I am chosen. I will be my own individual, and everything will be considered through prayer and investigation and discernment.
All right. Well, thank you, Joel. Really appreciate it. Appreciate taking the time to come in and to sit and do a public interview. Definitely not easy. And so we're going to excuse you for now and encourage the board members to reach out with any additional questions or anything they have. Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Could I get a motion just for a short recess, and we'll come back in 5 minutes or so.
So moved.
Support.
Support.
A motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Take a short recess. Moment, we will just need someone to get the next candidate, next applicant. Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order and wait for the next applicant to be brought in. Welcome, Sean. Right. Next, we have Sean Half. Thank you for coming in today. could each of the commissioners, please, we'll start down here with Roger and just introduce yourself by name and district.
Hi, Sean. I'm Roger Belknap, Commissioner representing District 9, which is Precinct 5 of Spring Lake Township, Robinson Township, and Grand Haven Township.
Hi, Sean. I'm Sylvia Rhodey, and I represent Allendale Township, District 8.
Sean, I'm Joe Moss, represent District 5, which is Blendon, Jamestown, City of Hudsonville, and a small piece of Zealand.
Hi, Sean, welcome.
Well,
Thank you. I'm Rebecca Curran and I represent Georgetown Township, District 7, and a little Silver Hudsonville.
Morning, Sean. Thanks for being here with us today. I'm Allison Miedema, County Commissioner representing District 11, which covers Chester, Crockery, the city of Coopersville, Polkton Township, Wright, and Talmadge Charter Township. So welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sean. My name is Gretchen Cosby. I'm County Commissioner for District 1, which is all of Park Township with the exception of Park 4, Precinct 4.
I'm
And
sorry,
then-
somebody coughed. I didn't hear what you said initially about what you represented.
Oh, sure. No, I'm Commissioner for District 1. So that's all of Park Township with the exception of Precinct 4, which Lucy has. And then I also have Port Sheldon and Olive Townships. Thank you for your application.
Good morning. My name is Lucy Ebel, and I'm the County Commissioner for District 2, which includes Holland Township and Park Township Precinct 4. And welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so next we're going to go through 10 questions. We're going to run a timer just so we know how much time we're using. Although last interview, we realized maybe we don't need all 35 minutes. We'll see. So feel free to take your time in answering. And the first question is a pretty open-ended one. Please tell us about yourself, why you decided to apply to be considered for this appointment to serve as County Commissioner for District 6.
Neighbors, fellow commissioners, residents of Ottawa County. I'm Sean Half. I've lived 44 of my 49 years on this earth here in Ottawa County. I grew up as a young child from 0 to 4. I lived in Kent County for 4 years. And as an adult, I lived maybe a year and a half in Kent County. Other than that, I've lived in Ottawa County my whole life. During my young years of going to school, I went to a private church school. I had a couple of years where I was homeschooled. And I also went to Jamestown Elementary, and I graduated from Hudsonville High School. After that, after I was done at Hudsonville High School, I graduated, I went to Grand Valley. My first time at Grand Valley, I got a degree in political science and I minored in history. While I was there, I was part of the College Republicans and Students for Life, and I was on the Student Senate. After that, I thought about going to law school, but I was kind of burnt out from going to school at the time, and I knew it would not be a good time to do that because it's even more strenuous with your studies than even in undergrad. So I did some various blue collar jobs for about 5 years or so. I went back to Grand Valley again and got a degree in legal studies, which was mostly training to be, a paralegal, but I definitely kind of going through there realized that I wanted to become a lawyer and go in law. Then I went to law school. I graduated. I was vice president 1 year and president of the Federal Society while I was there. And then once I graduated from law school, I formed my own business, representing people charged with crimes. I've done that for 13 years now, and it's been a very fulfilling job for me. My mom and my dad have lived in Ottawa County for most of their lives. My sister-in-law, my sister and my brother-in-law still live in Ottawa County to this day. My grandparents lived in Ottawa County. They passed away, unfortunately, but they did live in Ottawa County for most of their life as well. And so my roots here in this community are very strong. I'm married. My wife is Jeannie. We've been married for 13 years. She's worked for Child Protective Services, and she worked now at Network 180. Why did I decide to put in my application here? I think like most people here, you've probably been disappointed in elected officials before. They usually talk a good game and claim that they have our values, but then they disappoint in some way or another. And, you know, at the time we had the lockdowns and that I was not surprised, but definitely upset with how people reacted to that and how quickly people were willing to give up essential liberty to try to obtain safety. And of course, if they would have listened to Ben Franklin, they would have known that you're not going to get safety and you're not going to get liberty either when you do that. So when this opening came up, I decided to put my hat in. And the main reason for that is I can't control what other elected officials are going to do. I think there's plenty of people here that are going to be interviewed that I think would do a good job, and I would hope that they would follow through on what they're talking about. But the only way to be certain that I can be certain that I think the conservative and somewhat libertarian values in some ways in this community in District 6 are upheld would be for me to go for that position. So that's why I put in the application.
All right, thank you. Number 2, what qualifications or skill sets, including work or life experience, will you bring with you if you were selected to serve?
I think with the educational background that I have and the rigorous studies that I do, plus with being in law school and going on to become a lawyer and practice law, is that I learned you had to stand up for your values, but you needed to be prepared and have a good factual background to make your arguments. One of the most embarrassing things in my lifetime was when I was in college working on my undergrad, and we were doing a discussion, kind of a debate on First Amendment issues, religious liberty, separation of church and state. And I'd done some research, but it was pointed out that a quote I'd used was not correct. It wasn't verified. It's one of those quotes you see on the internet, and some people you see that read books that sound great. You know, certainly was great for my position, but there's no way to verify it was actually said. And I was very upset. It was you know, not a good experience to be called out like that, and certainly wasn't happy with the person, the author that I relied on for that. But it also made me realize to go do my own studies, whether it be in the library and stuff, kind of doing researches and validating things that I found to make sure if I go on record of something that I can actually back up what I say. When I was on the student senate, there's a lot of times I was the only person voting no for certain spending issues. A lot of it was I didn't think it was really a good waste of the good use of the money. I didn't think it was really, and I didn't think in some ways I didn't think it really supported the values. But so I wasn't afraid to vote no in those type of situations. But I did so in a way where I was able to earn the respect of some people that didn't disagree with me. I was given Student Senator of the Week there a couple of times by people. And most of those people that voted for me were people that we had some sincere disagreements about. But I always, when I dealt with these people, I always would do so in a respectful way. And people respected me because I had facts behind my reasons, and they might not agree, but they told me that they appreciated it. And some of the best discussions I had back then were with people whose ideas were almost the complete opposite of me, whether they were agnostic or atheists, or people that were, you know, moderate Democrats, even hardcore liberal people there. You know, also when I was at school there was a certain professor who, to my knowledge, is still teaching there, who didn't like some of the things I stood up for and would make some sarcastic comments to me when we were going by. But, you know, I didn't back down from that. I had similar things in law school. People would challenge your legal positions. You had to be very prepared for that. And certainly you have to really have a good knowledge of the facts when you're handling cases. It's always good to have good facts on your side. And I think a lot of times conservatives and Republicans have great facts on their side. Sometimes in my line of business, I don't have great facts with some of the clients of mine that get in trouble, but you deal honestly with people. I think one of the highlights of my career was a prosecutor. We came in and we were going to take a plea deal on a case. And I had left the actual offer sheet at my office, and the prosecutor started talking about an offer that was not as good as what my client had been given. And I was a little concerned, and I told him, no, that wasn't the offer. We had made this offer here. And he was a little surprised. He was kind of surprised that I was able to talk the person into giving that type of offer. But in the end, he told me, he said, Sean, he goes, I've known you, you've always been honest and upfront with me. And if you tell me the other prosecutor told you that, then the other prosecutor told you that, I'm going to honor the agreement. So that was something that was really a high praise to me, that I'm grateful for, that people know that, my word can be trusted, and that I'm going to do what is necessary to earn people's respect certainly without compromising principle as well. And I think, given the fact that I've had to, answer tough questions and go through a lot of debates and oral arguments and deal with people that had opposing views, that I would be able to argue for my positions. I'm determined to use fact-based arguments in order to support those positions.
All right, thank you. Number 3 is, there are many decisions and votes that take place each week as a county commissioner. So how will you go about making decisions? And if you could tie in kind of what is your internal compass?
Every decision I made will follow 4 to 5 steps that I go through. The first one is, does the board have the statutory authority to act in the manner that they are? If I do not think the board does, I'm going to vote no every single time. The second point is going to be, is it constitutional? Does it violate the state constitution or the United States Constitution? Unfortunately, sometimes we have a system where the courts, in my opinion, don't get it right, and maybe there's authority that a board might particularly have, but if I feel it violates the Constitution, I'm going to vote no. Number 3, are we going to use the least amount of government required to achieve good goals for this community? So a lot of times we're dealing with, you guys are dealing with budget issues here. I'm not saying everything has to necessarily be cut, but what's the least amount of money that can be spent in order to get the best results for our county? Or what's the least amount of manpower that is required to get the best results for the county? Number 4 would be, as everybody here is aware, certain segments of our county love filing lawsuits and litigation. I want to make sure everything that would be passed as a commissioner is done in a way that would mitigate possible legal lawsuits. I understand you're not going to be able to avoid it every single time. And if it's a baseless threat, we still move forward and do what we believe is right. But I would rather not be spending county money on litigation fees if it can be avoided. And 5, finally, does it support the values of my community when we move forward? So if any of those questions is, a no, then I would probably be a no vote for it.
Thank you. Number 4, if given the opportunity to decide how to spend a $1 million grant, how would you spend it and why?
Well, first of all, in my line of work, a lot of people that get in trouble have mental health issues. They have drug addictions. That would be an area that I think would be a good area to look into as far as reducing the amount of crime, because people that are addicted to alcohol and drugs, they're highly likely to recidivate and get in trouble again. And I don't want that happening. Mental health, I certainly think, is an issue. There was a time in my life where I was on the SNAP program. I had hardly any money at the time. I do think there should be some availability for people and, to as far as food assistance as well. That would be something else I'd look to. One thing I would be very wanting to do as far as that tip of money is to get body and dash cams for the deputies here in Ottawa County. There's some people in the prosecutor's office that have been opposed to that, and it's kind of a head scratcher to me, because I can give you a story which will show exactly why this would be a great thing. I had a young kid come in. He was charged with reckless driving. Not the most serious charge, but he goes, I drive this old junker car, and the police officer said I went over a railroad track and got 5 feet of air going over, and I was speeding. I said, that sounds really unlikely with what you're driving and everything like that. Thankfully, we had body cam. I was very skeptical of the officer's story in the report. That seems just really unlikely. We watched the body cam and I'm like, wow, we got a great view of this, so we'll be able to see. Well, sure enough, the kid hit the railroads and he got maybe more than 5 feet of air going over it. I remember the officer kind of dropped everything he was doing and put his lights on and took off. But I showed that to my client. He says, well, get me the best plea offer you can and we're moving on. And that's exactly what happened. And that's why that is so important. Most of the time, the officers are correct with what goes on. There's a few times that they're not. But the best thing about it is everybody's protected if you get that. The officer is protected against false allegations, and the rights of the individual are protected if their rights are violated. So that would be something that maybe we could use for money like that. A lot of counties, even Allegan, now my understanding has it. So I'm kind of at a loss why we're still waiting to move forward with that.
All right, thank you. Number 5, how much time would you expect to be able to give this role?
Well, we all have jobs outside of here, at least I believe, and I certainly do, but I believe certainly I would be able to put in the time to make sure the job is done right. I certainly feel I can easily put in up to 20 hours a week as is right now. I think scheduling conflicts would be minimal, but there could be some times where it wouldn't be avoided. If it becomes obvious that it's not going to be something I can do on a regular basis, if I was appointed, I would let somebody know. Probably 3 to 4 months, I would not be seeking re-election for this position because there'd be too much time constraints. But regardless, I would certainly fill out the whole year of this term without question.
Thank you. Number 6, describe a time when you had to consider differing opinions and make a decision.
Well, I have to make a lot of tough choices sometimes because a lot of times the prosecutor has a different opinion on, and my client has a different opinion as to what's going on. One that stands out the best for me was we had a argument going down where somebody was falsely charged with parental kidnapping. They were, the law was completely on our side, but the prosecutor for some reason at the time did not see it that way. They thought an affidavit of parentage was actually a court order, and therefore the person, when they didn't give the parent their child back, was kidnapping. Of course, an affidavit of parentage is not an official court order. Well, the judge there had been upset at the time about something and was real hostile. And so we had to decide whether to file a motion and take a chance in front of that judge or wait to get to circuit court, where the judge was, by all indications, more reasonable and would not be as hostile. But I did some research and talked to some other people. I was told that if you apologize, if you upset the judge, he'll change his mind and he will give you a fair shot, especially if he thinks your law is on your side. It's great that we have the separation of powers. It's all designed to try to keep government local, let local communities make decisions based on what they believe to be the best, because some communities are going to look at things a little differently than others. And you can maybe have more agreements. And if people really feel adamant about, I don't like the values of this community, it's not that far to move from Ottawa County to Kent County or Allegan or somewhere there. Obviously, if you have a whole nationalized system, it's kind of a lot harder to leave the country or move to a different state. So those are the things that I think are, one other thing that stands out to me is the system of merit achievement. Our economy is based on, for example, of rewarding merit instead of just focusing on giving out things based on equality and trying to make sure everybody is equal. Everybody has equal rights and equal opportunity. Not everybody has equal skills. Whatever you individual, I believe you're a nurse, you do your job a lot better than I could do my job, and vice versa. So we don't have the same skills, but we have the same rights.
Thank you. Similarly, what are some of the best things about Ottawa County?
There's good people. The community I live into is just outstanding. We have kind of like a side on the street I live that we kind of call the old timer group, and they just have some of the greatest stories. They're great people. We have some younger people. I had a gentleman in the Marines move in next to me. very kind. We look out after everybody. The old timers have some great stories. He goes, and he's very active, but these old timers, they're out walking 4 miles a day in their 80s, very helpful to everybody. And Ben goes, well, my wife got sick of me being around the house, so I retired. When I retired, so told me to go take a hike. So he hiked the Appalachian Trail, and he actually did at 65. So I'm blessed to have great neighbors. For the most part, we really have good schools around here, and I like the values that I see in this community as well.
Thank you. Number 9, where would you live if you could not live in Ottawa County?
The free state of Florida.
Anything you'd like to expand on, or good?
Well, Florida, when we were going through COVID lockdowns, I looked to the leadership there in Florida, and I think they turned out to be a citadel of freedom. They stood up and fought against a lot of the lockdowns. The leadership there took a lot of heat, but they never backed down. I'm very grateful for that. They have no state income tax there. It's very well run. The way that the leadership there handled the hurricanes is just spectacular leadership. Certainly a stark contrast to the terrible governor we have here in Michigan.
Thank you. Number 10, is there anything else you'd like to share that you have not been asked?
I think the questions here covered pretty much everything. My word is my bond. I'm going to give this a great effort. I will be my own person. I'm sure I'll have some disagreements with you on some things, but I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be upfront with you. I'm going to be respectful, and I'm going to do the work required to get the best results for my county, the part of the county here that I'm representing. I'm a little disappointed some of the people that there might be more disagreements aren't here today, but I can promise them if I'm given that I will be open and honest with you and be willing to discuss with you. There's certain fundamental principles that there will not be compromise on, but I do believe when it comes to budget issues and stuff like that we can work together and have some compromise on some issues with people that we have more disagreements with.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sean. Really appreciate you coming in. Appreciate sitting for these questions. That's the end of the questions, and so you may be excused, and we'll continue on with the next applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay, I do know that Lynn Jansen is here, so we will wait until he is escorted in. Welcome, Lynn. We have Lynn Jansen joining us, and to get started, we're just going to go around the table here and introduce ourselves. So Roger, why don't you get it started?
Good morning, Lynn.
morning.
I'm Roger Belknap, represent District 9, which is Robinson Township, Grand Haven Township, and Precinct 5 of Spring Lake Township.
Morning, Sylvia Rhodey, and I represent Allendale Township, District 8.
Morning, Joe Moss, District 5, Blunden, Jamestown, City of Hudsonville, and one small piece of Zealand.
Morning, Lynn.
Morning.
Welcome. Rebecca Curran, Georgetown Township, and I've got a little sliver of Hudsonville.
Okay.
Thanks.
Morning, Lynn. My district is District 11 and Allison Miedema. It's Chester, Crockery, City of Coopersville, Polkton, Talmadge Charter Township, and Wright Township. So thanks for applying and being here today.
Thank you. I ran into Gretchen in the hallway. I think she'll be right back.
Yeah.
Lucy Ebel, and I'm Commissioner for District 2, and that includes Holland Township, Park Township, Precinct 4. And welcome and good morning.
Thank you.
All right, welcome. We'll just wait one moment and wait for Commissioner Cosby to come back, and then we'll get into the questions.
All right.
Welcome. You can
Just gotta
introduce
introduce
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah.
While we've got a second, I've got a visual aid for a question that will be asked later. If I
Go for it.
And hi,
Morning, Gretchen.
Lynn. Yes, I'm Gretchen Cosby. I'm Commissioner for District 1, which is Olive Park Township with the exception of Park 4, Precinct 4, Olive and Port Sheldon Townships. Thank you for your application.
Thank you.
All right. So next we're going to go through questions, and the first one is fairly a little open-ended. Please tell us about yourself and why you decided to apply to be considered to serve if appointed as County Commissioner for District 6.
Okay. Well, my name is Lynn Jansen. I've been married to the same woman for 23 years. We have 3 children, Reagan Joy, Benjamin Rush, and Madison Grace, ages 16, 13, and 11. We have 3 dogs and my wife has a cat. In early 2022, I started hearing about a different way of doing business as a county. I approached some people I considered to be influential and said that I was considering a run for the Board of Commissioners. We talked about the seat that I'd be running for and the excellent job that Mr. Terpstra had done. And it didn't seem like Mr. Terpstra needed to have a primary challenger. I was busy with the Granville schools that were and are still going in the wrong direction. So I was happy not to take this on at the time. Because of this new opening and because of my work and the nature of it, I believe that I was uniquely available and somewhat uniquely qualified because of life experiences to be able to help this board, maybe more than some others.
Thank you. That's a good lead into question 2. What qualifications or skill sets, including work or life experience, would you bring with you if you were selected to serve?
So I built a couple of successful businesses. I built more than one unsuccessful business. But more importantly than that is I think like many of our lives, my life has been negatively affected by an overreaching government. My children's lives were affected in their school. One business in particular of mine was absolutely devastated by an overreaching government, and some of that was state, but the county affects it too. My goal will be to make sure that our citizens aren't negatively affected by their interactions with government.
Thank you. There are many decisions and votes that take place each week as a county commissioner. So how will you go about making decisions? And then if you could kind of tie in, what is your internal compass?
Yeah, let me start with the internal compass. My belief is that, like a physician, government should first do no harm. We've obviously recently seen that's not necessarily the way that government naturally reacts. Organisms want to get bigger. Government will do that unless it's checked. My internal compass will be to minimize government interaction with people that don't need it, and to help control and maybe even de-escalate the size of government.
Thank you. Number 4, if given the opportunity to decide how to spend a $1 million grant, how would you spend it and why?
An interesting question. I don't know that I necessarily would spend it. It's not, there's no such thing as free money. I imagine there are significant strings attached, and this question doesn't necessarily tell me about the strings. The strings are going to be really important to that question. I would look at it very carefully, see where the money is coming from, what strings are attached, and see if it's appropriate for us to spend it. In many cases, it won't be.
All right, thank you. Number 5, how much time would you expect to be able to give this role?
So I will give the role what time it needs. Filling in for Mr. Terpstra, I believe my first responsibilities will be to the committees that he was on, and I'm not sure how many of those there were, but I think that Mr. Terpstra had fewer than many of you. So my first responsibility will be to those, and then from there, talking to committee heads and committee chairs and seeing where more help is needed. I'll throw myself where I'm needed. That being said, again, I have a very unique work schedule that allows a great deal of flexibility. Much of my workday is research that can be done all times of day.
Thank you. Number 6, you please describe a time when you had to consider differing opinions and make a decision?
Okay, this is the one, I changed my answer to this morning. And that's the visual aid that you've got there, and I've got a copy here. So if I can take you back to the fall of 2021, my kids again were at Granville schools. And over the summer, I had attended every board meeting, and we were assured over and over again that the nonsense that had gone on prior to that was over. We weren't going to do it anymore. That was board policy. Well, if you recall, 2 to 3 days before school was to start for Granville, the Kent County Administrative Health Officer, who I had to deal with, because Granville is a Kent County school, changed their policy and said social distancing, masking, that was all back in. And the state, I believe, at the time had set out some guidance about mask waivers. And now I hadn't had a mask waiver. We were told we weren't going to need it. So for the first 2 weeks of school, I had pulled my children out of school. They weren't going to participate in that nonsense anymore. We finally found a physician that was outside of Spectrum, where my children had their physician. Actually, we had, in the meantime, we had changed our family physician to Family Christian Health Care Services, who had told us that mask waivers were available. After talking to their legal counsel, they had retracted that. So we were, not only did we have new pediatricians and physicians, but we were still out of luck. Finally, we found a physician that was willing to do this. He was recently retired from a major hospital system and therefore had much less at stake than other physicians that we were dealing with. So I had my children go for a diagnostic, here, what's difficult for wearing a mask for you? And the doctor agreed that because it made it more difficult to breathe, which you need to do, that my children qualified for this mask exemption. So our school sent out a waiver a form, which was page 2 of what I sent you, of if your children are going to get a mask waiver. And I'll point out, the initials here are not mine. I had to reach out to another parent who had saved theirs and more readily accessible than mine. But they wanted us to agree to a number of things that were not applicable to all students. And they were not generally in my children's best interests. For example, they wanted to take additional safety procedures, which in Hudsonville meant, I'm going to move your kid to the corner of the room where they're away from all the other children. We're going to isolate your child. And I didn't agree to that. So because I viewed this as a one-sided contract with no benefit to myself or my family, I started scratching items off. I knew that it wouldn't go unnoticed. So shortly after that, I got a call from our superintendent. His name is Roger Barrett. He's not a bad man, pushed by a bad board in my mind, but he explained to me the need for all of these items on page 2. And I very politely said to him, Mr. Barrett, I totally understand your position and I will not be changing mine. And so he explained himself again and why the attorneys needed it and why. And again, I said to him, Mr. Barrett, I totally understand your position and I will not be changing my position. Because I saw that I gained nothing by signing this. My kids gained nothing by signing this. In fact, one more specific one that I crossed off that the parent who signed this one is, I did not agree to notify my child's principal if my children were sick. I did keep my children home when they were sick, as any reasonable parent would do, but I didn't need to get myself caught up in the health department's tracking. One of my very good friends, his son is not a star basketball player, but basketball is his life. And his son never got sick, but was near children who did. And in 2021, missed all but maybe a week of his basketball season. Not, again, never being sick himself, but being near people who were. It was cruel at what we did to kids that year. And my kids weren't going to participate in it.
Thank you. Number 7 is a little bit of an opinion question. What are the best things about the United States of America?
Let's start with the founding. I believe that the founding was very unique in that it recognized the individual person. It bestowed rights on the individual that maybe had been tried once in Rome a couple of thousand years earlier. But really we're unique. Our founders were really quite brilliant people. I named my children after a couple of them. The goals they set forth and our founding in 1776 was one thing. 1791 was totally different. We realized the flaws that generalized freedom ideas left open, and we put them all in writing. We said, here are the things that government cannot do to you. And over time, we've gotten away from some of those things incrementally. One that's very important to me, we seem to be clawing back right now in the Second Amendment. United States Supreme Court has been excellent on that, and lower courts are starting to comply. Still a lot of fight, but they're starting to comply. Our people have been uniquely excellent also, and some of that is the philosophy that sets people free. Oppressed people that accept oppression don't have the opportunity for greatness. And because we've had the opportunity for greatness, great people have emerged here.
Thank you. Number 8, similarly, what are some of the best things about Ottawa County?
without trying to flatter you all, the answer is similar. We've got several people right now that have stood up for freedom. They've seen the overreach of government, and it has affected us all in different ways. And more so than many of our other counties, there are a few others in Michigan that are doing great work. But more so than most other counties in Michigan, we've said enough is enough. You've said enough is enough, and I appreciate it. Yeah, we've got great beaches. We've got beautiful farmland, but there are beaches and farmland all over Michigan. We are unique because of our people.
Number 9, if you could not live in Ottawa County, where would you live?
Well, until 2021, I lived a mile and a half east of where I live right now in Kent County. Their fight has not been as successful. They are fighting there isn't unity within the Republican Party there. But it's a great place to live. They're great people. They're not much different than us. They just have a different leadership structure, and I'm glad that our leadership structure is what it is.
Thank you. Number 10, open-ended. What else would you like to share that you have not been asked? Anything else?
I guess I would just like to make clear that I have agreed with the goals of this commission. Mr. Moss, I really appreciate the way you say thank you. It's almost the exact same tone, whether you've been cussed at for 3 minutes straight or praised for 3 minutes straight. And I find it comical almost every time.
Thank you.
I appreciate the underlying things that you've been doing, and I want to be a part of it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in. And we really appreciate it. Appreciate the time you put in and for answering our questions in a public interview. And you may be excused, and we will continue to the next applicant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn.
Next up is Joseph Parnell McCarter. While we're waiting, I guess, for the public here, I guess I'll say I'm enjoying this much more than I anticipated. It is really fun to hear from people and why they are interested in serving the people. So I'm glad that there are some here who are watching in public, in person. And I hope that the people of Ottawa County will be able to see these public interviews. I'm a little surprised that the media is absent. I think maybe we might want to do a welfare check on some of them. And I'll probably call a few or email a few after this meeting to make sure they're okay. But anyway, this has been great.
I'm missing my cookies.
Right. Yeah. Does anybody need a break or anything, or?
Yeah, I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. You want to take? We're waiting for Commissioner Rhodey to come back.
Okay, good.
One comment that I have neglected to share with a couple other people is just keep your microphone up by your mouth.
Okay,
Yeah,
right there. Okay.
it's been okay, but
Hi, how you doing? Good. Morning.
Okay, all right, we'll continue. Welcome. We have with us today, next up, Joseph Parnell McCarter. Appreciate you being here. We're going to start off by a quick introduction. So if we could just go to Roger, we'll go around the table.
Okay, great.
Morning, Joseph. Thank you for being here and thank you for your interest. My name is Roger Belknap. I represent District 9, which is Grand Haven Township, Robinson Township, and Precinct 5 of Spring Lake Township.
Good morning. I'm Sylvia Rhodey and I represent Allendale Township, District 8.
I'm Joe Moss, represent District 5, which is Blendon, Jamestown, City of Hudsonville, and a small part of Zealand.
Good morning, welcome. My name's Rebecca Curran. I represent Georgetown Township, and I also have a sliver of Hudsonville.
Morning. Thank you for being here and applying. I'm Allison Miedema, County Commissioner for District 11, which is Chester Township, Crockery Township, the City of Coopersville, Polkton Charter Township, Wright, and Talmadge Charter Township.
Good morning, Joseph. My name is Gretchen Cosby and I'm County Commissioner for District 1, which is all of Park Township with the exception of Precinct 4, and then also Olive and Port Sheldon Townships. Thank you for applying.
Good morning. I'm Lucy Ebel and I'm the Commissioner for District 2, and that includes Holland Township, Park Township, Precinct 4. And welcome and good morning. Oh, still morning.
All right, well, the first question here that we have is open-ended. So if you could please tell us about yourself and why you decided to apply to be considered for this appointment to serve as County Commissioner for District 6.
Sure. Well, first of all, I do want to thank you all for letting me have this opportunity. It's a real privilege and honor to, however it goes, it's in God's hands, but I do want to thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm going to try to answer that second question first, and that is as far as why. And the reason is actually that you all inspired me. As I saw what you all were doing in terms of trying to do in this county, in terms of government, for many years, I have not been involved other than just voting in elections. But when I saw that you really meant it in terms of seeking bottom-up governance and really meant it in terms of seeking to preserve our liberties and our Christian principles, it inspired me to get involved. And a lot of terms have been bandied about what this new board is. But unfortunately, the term that has not been used that would be accurate is anti-federalist. And anti-federalist means exactly that. It's bottom up, and it was fighting for the Bill of Rights when the original Constitution had been illegally overthrown. And the anti-federalist tried to preserve that as much as possible, and they got it over against the Federalist objections into the federal Constitution. And that fight between actually top-down governance versus bottom-up governance and trying to the fight against actually tyranny or really overbearing versus trying to preserve the rights and justice for the people. That fight has been going on throughout our country's history. It's not a new fight. It's a very old one. It actually has been going on since the early years. So the term anti-federalist is what describes this new board. And that's something that frankly, I've been trying to argue for quite a number of years. And so when I saw, hey, these are people who really mean it. This is not just rhetoric. It inspired me to try to get involved much more than I ever have before. And so that is the reason and obviously in putting myself up as far as possibility for this position, it's because it would even more ramp it up. I would like to join, as God would will, in the effort for this cause. And so that's why, as far as my background, I'm originally from Texas. I've been blessed in many, many ways. Thankful for those experiences. I grew up in a professing Christian home. I did go for a number of years as frankly an agnostic evolutionist until my college years. I'm thankful that I had opportunity in terms of hearing the gospel and embracing it by his grace. I've been blessed with a very good wife who actually, and interestingly, had many of the same life experiences I did, but she came from a half a world away in the Philippines, but remarkably the same experience. We met in New Jersey, anyway, both of us were in college. We decided to move here, and I won't go into that. That might be another question, but we are very thankful and thankful to be here. And yeah, so that is why.
Thank you. Number 2 is what qualifications or skill sets, including work or life experience, would you bring with you if you were selected to serve?
Sure. So in terms of the work and educational experience I have, I do believe it has given me knowledge of a broad area of expertise in terms of whether it be legal issues, personnel issues, financial and accounting issues, really the whole gamut. My background, as far as I had an undergraduate degree in philosophy, but a graduate degree in professional accounting, MBA in professional accounting. I have quite a number of years. Well, first of all, for a few years, I was with a CPA firm, for different CPA firms, but then for the last 30 or so years, has been more a controller and CFO of companies and dealing with managing just a whole variety of issues, legal challenges, you name it, personnel, whatever, many of the same sorts of issues. But the good thing is, I think some of you all come probably from, let's say, educational backgrounds or nursing backgrounds, and all those are very important. Mine is more business. And so I do think I might be a good bridge in terms of some of our challenges with business, okay, and reaching out to the business community, because that is where I have my experience.
Thank you. Number 3, there are many decisions and votes that take place each week as a county commissioner. So how will you go about making decisions? And can you kind of add, what is your internal compass?
Sure. Well, first of all, I do like to study issues to make sure that I am as well informed as I can be in making the decisions. Second of all, I like to run my ideas by other people. Sometimes I have some good ideas, sometimes some very bad ones. And this is the same in business. I do it every day. You know, I have what I think is a great idea, but when I mention it, someone shoots it down, and for good reason. And so the give and the take of banning about ideas. But of course, and I know this has come up in terms of this board, not politicizing or, it's not that. It's trying to figure out what makes sense and what works. So, and in terms of my moral compass, I can sincerely say it's my sincere goal to both honor Christ and do what's best for the common good of the citizens here in Ottawa County.
Thank you. Number 4 is, if given the opportunity to decide how to spend a $1 million grant, how would you spend it and why?
Sure. So one reason I gave the list of goals, obviously in terms of what my application, in terms of a recent speech, was sort of to lay out for you what, at least as an initial idea of what I would like to see for the county that maybe is not yet quite being done. And 2 of those have to do with one, and I think actually Commissioner Rhodey mentioned it, is perhaps a Department of Family Impact. So maybe if I would say half of that to another department that would maybe look at some of the same issues, but in different ways, different approaches from what I would say maybe traditional approach of, let's say, in terms of public health and otherwise. Second, I would really love to see a neighborhood watch network. I think that, and again, I could go into more detail, but I think there's a real need for that, for addressing a whole series of issues in terms of taking care of the needs of people in the community, taking care of crime, taking care of, frankly, a rather broken election system, and seeking to build up that bottom-up governance. Again, I think to get more and more of the community involved, and in many respects, to get back the anti-federalist beginnings of this nation, a lot of it involves rebuilding the structures that were there and that they're strong. And of course, also associations with other counties, but that's in terms of the $1 million that you asked about, it would be those 2 efforts: Department of Family Impact, I'm just using that term, and a Neighborhood Watch Network.
Thank you. Number 5, how much time would you expect to be able to give this role?
Yeah, so I am committed, in saying that I'm offering my services, I'm committed to doing a very good job at this. Okay, so just as an initial thought, as far as what that may entail, 15 to 20 hours a week, but whatever it takes, I'm committed to doing a very good job. Now, obviously, I also have a moral and ethical obligation to my current employer. So we're going to have to, he's a very fair, I've been blessed by very good employer. We will have to work out the parameters so that he's obviously getting his, I'm giving him work, a fair amount of work for what he's paying me. So that has to get worked out too. But obviously, in committing to this, I am committed to doing a very good job.
Thank you. Number 6 would be, describe a time when you had to consider differing opinions and make a decision.
Sure. So, well, really, every day of my work involves that. Okay. I mean, it is. So there's really no day that goes by that I am not dealing with, different people having different ideas. It's just part of the business. But one experience in particular that's maybe a larger issue has to do with the issue of work from home. And I would say 10 years ago or so in my company, I was probably the biggest objector to any even consideration of that. And I don't know, it was even before COVID that I started to rethink it. And there were, again, different views on that in our company. Different views at management level, different views among the employees. And we tried it some, like I say, over against what had been my initial objections. Tried it some, it worked, at least selectively. And then we, obviously in COVID, well, we had to really ramp it up. And because of the laws and regulations, and we've brought that back down. But dealing with this whole issue of work from home, and it continues to be an issue. Again, I think it's a matter of looking on a case-by-case basis and seeing what works. Some areas it does work, some it doesn't. But working with the people, trying to keep people not upset too much by it on either ways, because you can have people at work who do not like the fact, well, why do they get to work from home, right? And I don't. So, and we're a manufacturer, for instance. Well, there are a lot of jobs where you simply cannot, that you can, you can't do welding or machining at your house. So anyway, having to work through those issues, but it's been a good experience in terms of, what should I say, being careful with the employees' feelings about it, but doing what's prudent for the company and the whole.
Okay, thank you. Number 7, a little bit of an opinion question. What are the best things about the United States of America?
Yeah, well, I think we are a very blessed nation, and we are a nation, of course, that has many challenges going on right now, but we have been blessed by God with the benefits of a heritage that we have to be careful that we don't totally squander. We have been blessed by a government that distributed power, did not concentrate the power in just a small group of people. We've been blessed that we have, in general, again, at our founding, sought to build Christian principles into our governance. We need to make sure to preserve those as much as we can. Obviously, this has been one area where it's more been a matter of progressive erosion. From my standpoint, in a constitutional sense, I think it was a mistake, as you know, to leave the original Constitution, which I believe was more decentralized than the current one. But even with the federal Constitution, what needs to be kept in mind is it was a fusion of the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist into one Constitution. And so even in the federal Constitution, it was a preservation of those liberties and decentralizations. It's just you also had, in some sense, the fox guarding the hen house of those Bill of Rights. And that therein lies the challenge, because you have the main body of the federal Constitution is Federalist and more top down, but then the Bill of Rights being more bottom up. And so, but we can be very thankful we have that bottom up incorporated even in our national Constitution. We certainly don't want to lose that. And obviously, as you know, it would be my desire, if I had my ideal, by legal means, peaceful means, if I could go back to the original, that's what I would like, but we'll see.
Thank you. Similarly, number 8, what are some of the best things about Ottawa County?
Well, there are many good things about Ottawa County. And, this is something like an adopted child versus a natural child situation. My wife and I are adopted children of Ottawa County. Obviously, a lot of people in Ottawa County grew up here. And so they are sort of the natural children of Ottawa County. In our own case, we were, well, my wife from the Philippines, I'm from Texas. We chose this area. And it was, we had friends and through church connections, and we've really appreciated. We chose the area because of the family values, the Christian family values of the area. We liked the mix of rural, suburban, and urban that in the general metropolitan area. But again, the main thing is probably just the values. It's very nice people. We really appreciated that. And so even though we're not native to this area, we actually, the fact that we're here is because we chose it.
Thank you. Number 9, where would you live if you could not live in Ottawa County?
Well, so we are really committed to this overall metropolitan area. I mean, it would be a hard second choice, not one that I would really want to do. I'm not meaning to be negative about Kent County, but it would be a second choice. But Kent County, realistically and honestly, Kent County would be my second choice. We really, and my wife's too, we're really committed to this overall community. So that's where we would be.
Thank you. Number 10, last question. What else would you like to share that you have not been asked? Anything additional?
Well, I would, again, thank you for the opportunity you've given. I guess, I think you've pretty well covered it. I guess in terms of just overall, I would say that I would maybe want to be asked as far as what my vision beyond some of those things that I listed there. I would say the more that we can look at approaches to, how should I say, how do we go about best helping the needs of those who really need help? And is the best way this program and that program and this program and that program, or rather, would it possibly be the case that we look at connecting a particular person in need with a counselor that looks at that overall need? And that, when I say a counselor, whether that be a church or charitable organization, and look at the overall, what does that poor person need? What do they need to get from point A to point B, as opposed to just having, well, we have one program for food, we have one program for that, we have one program for this. But if you look at it in terms of, let's say, whether, like I say, whether it be a church diaconate, or whether it be for those who are, don't want to be associated by this with a church, to really look, what will it take to get that person from point A to point B? Okay. Holistic. What do we do? And that's what if I had to say, and again, I sort of look at this through also utilizing a neighborhood watch network to see who has those needs, and then helping that person find, okay, which one of these organizations, whether it be a church or non-church, that you would like to help you get there. So it's not just throwing this program or that program, giving them food, but obviously the best thing is that person gets themselves in a situation they don't need to be receiving a government program. I mean, the ideal is, right, that you teach them how to fish themselves. But in any case, what are their needs? And someone really looking holistically to how to get them there. So that would be, in terms of a question, that would be, in terms of things that I did not mention in my list, that would, I think, be one that so as to help people by God's grace to get out of what in many cases a difficult situation. Of course, if there are some things that you just can't get out of, right? I mean, so there, and those are situations where it's just not. But some people are obviously in situations where they could, I mean, like drug addiction or so forth. And someone holistically helping that person, they can help them connect to the different services, right? But they look at the whole for that, help them with a whole for that person, like whether a deacon, diaconate, or whatever, helping them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That's the end of the questions. Really appreciate you coming to a public interview. And you may be excused, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
All right. Could we get a motion for a quick recess?
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carried. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Thank you, everyone. We are on our next interview, which is Kendra Wenzel. So if staff could please welcome Kendra to the boardroom, that'd be great. Then we'll get started. Welcome. All right, joining us next is Kendra Wenzel. Thank you for being here, Kendra. And we're going to start by just going around the table here, and the commissioners will do a quick introduction.
Good morning, Kendra. Roger Belknap, represent District 9 of Ottawa County Board of Commission. That is Grand Haven Township, Robinson Township, and Spring Lake Precinct 5.
Morning. I'm Sylvia Rhodey and I represent Allendale Township, which is District 8.
Hi, Kendra. Joe Moss, District 5, Blendon, Jamestown, City of Hudsonville, and a little part of Zealand. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Kendra, welcome. Rebecca Curran, District 7, Georgetown Township, and I have a little sliver of Hudsonville.
Morning, Kendra. Allison Medema, County Commissioner for District 11, which covers Chester Township, Crockery, the city of Coopersville, Polkton, Wright, and then where I reside, which is Talmadge, Charter Township. And thank you for being here.
Good morning, Kendra. I'm Gretchen Cosby and County Commissioner for District 1, which is all of Park Township with the exception of Precinct 4, and then Port Sheldon and Olive Township. Thank you for applying.
Thank you. Good morning, Kendra. Lucy Ebel, District 2, and I represent Holland Township and Park Township Precinct 4. And welcome.
All right, so to get started, we're going to do kind of an open-ended question. So could you please tell us about yourself and why you decided to apply to be considered to serve as County Commissioner for District 6?
Kendra Wenzel. I've lived in Hudsonville for approximately 10 years.
Oh, and could you also make sure your microphone is close just so we can hear?
Can you
Sorry.
hear? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Kendra Wenzel. I've lived in Hudsonville for approximately 10 years. I lived here with my husband. We've been married for 32 years and we have 4 kiddos from ages 19 to 31. The reason that I got involved, I had heard that Kyle had resigned and I had a fleeting thought about putting in my application. And I'm currently on the executive committee for the Ottawa County Republican Party. And I think there's a lot of crossover in that and what's required for both that and this. I then, over the last little bit since his resignation, I've received multiple phone calls of people asking me, hey, have you thought about applying? Hey, if you, and it's from people I trust. So that's what got me thinking about it. And then in essence, I think the whole circular aspect of it is serving our county.
Thank you. Number 2 is what qualifications or skill sets, including work or life experience, will you bring with you if you are selected for this role?
It started out on a personal level for me. Our daughter was in her junior year of high school and she had a legal medical mask exemption. This was during the COVID era. And a police officer came in and escorted her out of her classroom. She showed him that she had a legal medical mask exemption. He did not care. He took her out of the school. We fought to get her back in. When she was in, she was put in the corner of a room and everybody was moved to the other side of the room away from her. She was shoulder checked in the hallway. It became a volatile environment for her. So we put her in the Jennison International Academy and she graduated about a half a year early there. With that, it lit a fire in me. I wanted to know, instead of talking, I needed to walk. I needed to figure out what to do. I became a precinct delegate. I researched that. After I walked my entire precinct for that, just talking with people, giving out literature, having conversations with everyone, constituents in my precinct. And then I was asked to be a part of the EC for Ottawa County. And in that, the crossover, I think, is the setting policy, providing leadership, adding oversight, serving our constituents. So there's a lot of crossover there, which I think in essence helped me to train me to apply for this position here. And then I was asked to be chair of the membership committee for our steering committee for the Ottawa County Republican Party. And that entails vetting, recruiting, and mobilizing approximately 350 precinct delegates. And I formed a team to enact that and then complete that task. So I think that's the gist of it.
Thank you. Number 3, there are many decisions and votes that take place every week as a county commissioner. So how would you go about making decisions? And can you also add something about what is your internal compass?
I'm a researcher by nature. Someone once asked me, any more questions? I ask a lot of questions. I like to know the lay of the land, the specific things that we're trying to solve, the specific things that we need to do to do policies, procedures, what the process would be to do that. And I think in asking a lot of questions, there has to be complete truth at the center of all of it. And in that, prayer and discernment is a huge thing for me personally.
Thank you. Okay, number 4, if given the opportunity to decide how to spend a $1 million grant, how would you spend it and why?
Spreadsheets would be involved. I think, again, a lot of research, a lot of figuring out what is needed where those funds are actually going when they are given to someone. Is it legitimate purposes? Is it not? Just doing a lot of digging and learning about each area that's wanting that money and if it should go into that area or should not.
Okay, thank you. Number 5, how much time would you expect to be able to give this role?
I researched that when I was thinking about this, and I did actually phone a couple commissioners and ask how much time when they first started they put into it. The first 3 to 5 months, approximately 40 to 60 hours a week is what is expected from what I understood. Once things settle down a little bit, you get the learning curve under your belt at 40 weeks full time, whatever's needed.
Thank you. Number 6, could you please describe a time that you had to consider differing opinions and make a decision?
That would be personal, I think, for me, a personal situation. When I was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma, they immediately wanted me to do chemo. They had to start it the next week, and it just felt like everything came at me like a freight train. My mom had lung cancer, and it was outside of her lungs, so they weren't supposed to do anything. And the oncologist wanted to give her a master blast of chemo. And out of fear, she did that. And she had that on a Friday. She was hospitalized on a Saturday and died in 15 days. She was supposed to have 6 months to 2 years until that master blast of chemo. And my father-in-law died from complications of, and he bled out from chemo. So I told her I wanted time to research. I wanted time. And she said, "You'll die." And I said, "That's okay. I know where I'm going. I just need to know if I have time, like 6 months, am I going to die within 6 months?" And she said, "Likely not." And there was just I fired her. It was not a good conversation. She was not an advocate for me. So I researched a lot of that, which brought me to a natural protocol. I did that for a year. My dad died in the middle of that unexpectedly. And the cancer they said it might explode because of the natural protocol and stress. It did, ended up in my heart sac, and I researched again. Radiation was a hard no for me. That oncologist stormed out of the room because I wouldn't take radiation. That was okay. That's not his choice. And then the confirmation for the whole thing for me was there was a pharmacist that was in there in that meeting. And when that oncologist stormed out, she said, "I am so proud of you. You are your own best advocate." And it's right. When you have radiation on your chest, it can cause heart trouble, lung trouble, all of that. So she said, "Keep advocating." So I don't do anything without research. I don't do anything without being completely at peace about it.
Thank you. Number 7, a little bit of an opinion question. What are the best things about the United States of America?
Until recently, our constitutional freedoms, our ability to have free speech, worship freely, all of it. And I think that is the most important to me about America. We're a melting pot, and I think that we need to maintain our constitutional freedoms.
And similarly, number 8, what are the best things about Ottawa County?
When we moved here from where we lived before, I told Jeff it was like the Twilight Zone. Everything was so wonderful and safe, and everybody was so kind. So we fell in love with Ottawa County. It seems to be a tight-knit community, predominantly conservative values, which I appreciate, good school systems. That's really what brought us here.
Thank you. Number 9, where would you live if you could not live in Ottawa County?
Anywhere where I could have 10 acres, a farm, chickens, cows, be self-sustaining. Yeah, that would be good. And close enough to my kids where I could visit all of them.
Thank you.
Yes.
Number 10, it's the last question. And it's just open-ended. What else would you like to share that you have not been asked?
I appreciate being given the opportunity. I've attended a lot of these meetings. I've spoke at a lot of these meetings. The tenets and the values and everything that all of you have, I think are a beautiful thing. To me, it's very encouraging. And I would love to be a part of that. I would love to get people more civically minded and involved. And it's just, I've enjoyed this whole year watching you all and really watching you live out what you believe, your values and everything.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Mhm.
That is all the questions. We really appreciate you coming in for a public interview. And with that, then you may be excused.
Okay, thank you so much. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Kendra.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra.
I stopped shaking.
All right. So we have reached the end of 8B, having interviewed these 5 candidates. Thank you, board members, for being here. And next up is public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? If you could please state your name and location, where you live, and address the chair. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Michael Kuras. I live in Spring Lake Township. I'd like to answer the question that you put to the atmosphere. The media is attending virtually. So that's why you can't physically see them today. Now, the rationale for that I can't speak to. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Anyone else in person? We do have at least one person online. Welcome.
Darlene Dykstra, Georgetown Township. I just appreciate the fact that this is a public interview and we get to be privy to the process. And I think it's a good idea because it shows that there was transparency and a fair assessment of all the positions and all the answers. So thank you very much for making it public.
Thank you. Anyone else in person? We'll look to see if we have anyone online.
Adria, are you there?
Hello, yes, thank you.
Okay, if you just state your name and your jurisdiction, and you have 3 minutes.
Adria Hill, Holland Township. First, I was glad to hear Commissioner Moss changed his position on speaking to the press. Today, you mentioned that you may reach out to the members of the press who typically are at your meetings, and I hope you follow up on that. Second, similar to the commenter prior to me, I thank you for making these interviews public so that the residents of District 6 can get to know the candidates. However, I am disappointed that commissioners were not able to ask questions publicly. When this process was introduced a few weeks ago, you were committed to making this a transparent process. And today you mentioned that the reason you wanted the interviews to be consistent, and that's why you weren't going to allow additional questions. Unfortunately, the decision not to allow follow-up questions goes against this goal of transparency and consistent process. Because we cannot go back in time and redo these interviews to allow for the transparency promised, I ask that any commissioner who meets with a candidate to please mention it in the discussions of the vote. I also suggest that you share the portions of the discussion that contribute to your decision. Not only will this provide transparency, but it will allow other commissioners to have a similar set of information to base their decision on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online? All right. Seeing none, and as we have no additional business for today, I will call this meeting adjourned.